everyone. Welcome to my podcast. So, we've got lots to talk about today. As you know, I continue building on this platform of family dynamics and how it can build a dynasty or how it can destroy a dynasty for those in the family office space. When we take a look at family dynamics, we know that we all have one, right? We all come from a family. We've all built a family of some sorts. And so family dynamics, I find, is probably the most important part of our life and our relationship experience, yet it's downplayed. I think it's downplayed a lot. So we will be starting with the family dynamics for each one of you and how it either helps you thrive and helps to expand you, or how it has been a limiting factor for you. And so when we realize that this is the family that we're born into, right? So the family of origins, the one that we were birthed into, that we were born into, whether you live with that family or perhaps you were adopted by another family, it's the family that you tend to spend the most time with. Sometimes it could be parents, but sometimes it could be grandparents or it could be adoptive parents. So without getting into the minutia of that, what I've noticed in working with families for over 20 years is that it all goes back to family. It all goes back to the messaging that we received as children, what was said to us about us, how we were described, how we were treated, how we maybe took personally what somebody was trying to do by teaching us, and instead it felt like an attack or it felt abusive. And so I want to address several of these points today because this carries into our adulthood. And then not only does it carry into our adulthood, it carries into how we parent our children, but then also how we interchange our energy with our partners and with people in business. And so the first point that I wanted to address today is how we have so much trouble getting away from how our family sees us, right? And so because we spend so much time with them, or because they do know a lot about us and they lived with us and they watched us grow, they have a lot of perspective and opinions and judgments about who we are, how we are, and it becomes very difficult to come out of that entanglement because they see you a certain way, they know you a certain way, and so perhaps as adults, you'll all come together and they'll say something like, oh, no, but it's because so and so is this way, or because yeah, you were always like that, right? And so that's really tough because if we are constantly evolving, which we are, and we're constantly elevating our frequency and expanding into different roles, different life purposes, but our family has a tendency to pull us right back to where they left us off, or we left them, maybe as a teenager or young adult, or doesn't even matter. When they have that very strong opinion and they pull you into that energy, and you start having conversations from there, and maybe you're trying to defend yourself and like, listen, I'm not like that anymore. And like, no, I know. I remember when you were 10 or I remember when you were 15 and this is how you acted. And I remember you overreacted and you lost it. And, I know you have a temper, without giving you an opportunity to, what about all the work that I put into myself to not be that person anymore? Or maybe you haven't been around for 10 years, right? Because maybe you went away to college and then you took a job where you relocated yourself to, and then you come back 10 years later and like, no, but I remember, like, nope, you're not going to get away from that one. And so when we all have had those sorts of experiences, and listen, it's done unto us, but we do it as well. No, I remember you being this way, and therefore, that's all I know is that, I don't know, you used to gossip a lot, or you were very dramatic, or you had a temper, or you used to cry a lot, right? And so we want to get away from all of this judgment. Why? Because in the world of energy, judgment is a low vibration. And when we're pointing out what is something negative about someone else, not only did we lower their vibration, but we've lowered our vibration. And so if we're being very intentional to want to live a life where there's a lot of peace and we feel this high frequency and things flow in our life and business is good and the partnership is doing great and the kids are doing fabulous, you've got to step away from that pattern. You really need to stop being that person that keeps calling people into their past. And just to add to that, right, because it only gets better, just to add to that, because you bring in their past, what is inevitable is that then you become to them, right, and to everyone around and to the family and the family dynamic, you become who you used to be. So all of this work that you've placed into yourself, all of this investment you've made for self-development, meditations, different experiences, retreats, just all of the work that you've put into yourself just gets erased, somehow nullified in the field, because now you have no other choice but to act and react to things, matters, people, the way that you used to. And so when we start to understand the power of this dynamic, and even with our partners, right? Or we do it with our kids. And so let's say that your partner and you had a situation that hurt you both very deeply. Maybe one of you stepped out of the marriage, somebody cheated, or they avoided telling you something, or there was a problem with, their family. In-laws sometimes can be very difficult, right? So it could be like an in-law thing, and you felt that they sided with their family and not with you, and they didn't defend you, and whatever that is, right? If you continue recycling that event, you will never get past what happened. And listen, when I work with couples and there's been cheating or lies, which, obviously cheating is a lie, but different types of lies, right? So when I'm working with a couple and that's been their experience, the one thing before I even start having a conversation is, can you truly, truly, from your heart, deepest of your core, can you truly get past the betrayal? Can you really release and remove yourself from that episode happening to you, for both of you? Because if you can't, there's nothing to resolve. Because what I've noticed, and again, so many couples that I've worked with in the past, is that is the card that gets pulled out time and time and time again. No, because you cheated on me, therefore you're going to do it again. Well, then you should have left, right? You should have left this person. Like, let's be clear here. Like, if you can't get over and you're thinking that somehow magically one day you're going to wake up and that betrayal or that cheating or whatever happened is the wound that you just have not worked through or have not been able to heal, this isn't going to work. You can't call the person out on the same incident time and time and time again. And listen, if they've done it multiple times, that tells you a lot. And if you can't live with that, then that's on you. And that's where your responsibility to work on yourself, right? Pull in that shadow and take a look and say, hey, I can't be with someone that I can't trust. Or know that about them and just be okay that they may go from time to time and step out of the marriage or out of the marriage vows or the agreements that you both made to each other or the promises that you both made to each other, and that you're okay with that, because the energy that it takes for you to be recycling that. And then, of course, like I said earlier, when you pull it out on them, you're pulling it out on yourself. So now you have to be that martyr. Now you are that victim of this circumstance, of this cheating. And so you're just recycling that same energy all over again. They become the cheater, you become the victim to the cheater, and the energy and any work that you both have done to elevate from this situation and move past it just takes you right back to the past. And that's why I wrote the book Heal Your Past and Live Today, is because for me and my life, but also for all the clients I worked with, for thousands of clients that I worked with back in the day, what I understood most was that the past is what haunts us all the time. And so when we're talking about these family dynamics and how this all starts to play out, is in order for me to continue to elevate, expand myself, move into this higher frequency, step into an energy of joy, of love, of abundance, of peace, of good energy that I could spew to everyone around me and share in my businesses and counterparts. If I can do that and hold that, then I've got no other choice. We have no other choice but to release that past. It is so important for you to be able to come to terms with what is hurting you right now. What have you not been able to get over? And so when we're bringing that component into a family business, right, and then expanding this family dynamic into an actual family office. And so the difference, if we're gonna look at the difference between a family office and a family business, the way that I see it, and the way that it works for my daughter Katrina and myself, who have established our own family office, is that one of them, family offices, are all about building legacies, right? So you're building this empire, this dynasty. You're going to build something that is going to outlive you. It's generational, right? And so stepping into and building this generational wealth for my heirs, for our heirs. A family business is typically, the way that I've seen it and the way I've done it in my own family, is that someone had a great idea, or somebody has this great business model or a great business already running, and then everybody kind of steps in, and you kind of start assigning people to different tasks, right? So okay, you're going to take care of accounting, and you're going to do customer service, and you're going to go do sales, and you're, even if the person is not, has no idea what they're doing, or it's not something that aligns with them, we just kind of start calling out family members. Hey, I have a job for you. Like, you're going to do the data entry, right? And so it's not giving the family members an opportunity to bring in their purpose, or to bring in what they're passionate about, to build something that is going to outlive this generation, and it's going to be around for the other generations, right? The next generations to come. And so I find, this is my opinion, I find that family businesses could be quite disorganized and not very grounded, not very stable, because we are bringing people to do tasks that don't necessarily align with them or to them, but it's not something that they really want to do. But guess what? It provides a paycheck. And so, hey, I'm good. I get a paycheck when I go to my family business, and then that's it, right? So people are working to kind of get by, and they're working to really to fulfill the paycheck, right? So it's more of a getting by energy. I feel that it's more chaotic, right? Because that disorder, um, there's a whole hierarchy of situations happening within the hierarchies, and why is so and so, why do they have that position and I don't have it, or why did you pull somebody from outside and didn't offer it to me when I've been in the company for a few years. So there's not really a mission and a vision that is aligned with everyone across the board. And so when I'm working with family businesses, because they could be very successful And typically what I help them do is to start looking at it from transitioning from a family business to a family office, right? What would need, especially when the numbers start growing, and there's large sums of money coming in from profits or from property sales or wherever the funds are coming in. Once the numbers start to grow, there's really no, there's really, in order for it to remain, right, a successful business, I can't even imagine that it would continue to be done the way that the family business was originally started or was running. So when we start bringing these family dynamics into the mix, right, and we have all of this discord happening between the family members, well, now you have a whole bottom line, right, that is being influenced and affected by this drama, right, this dynamic, all the gossip, all the negativity that is happening within the members of the family. And so when I come in, especially in the family office space, typically as Katrina and I come in, she handles the financial aspects and how to protect the assets and the trust building and the trust structures and how to structure it from a financial standpoint. And then my role is to bring in the relationship aspect of how do we build a strong foundation for this family office or for this family in order for them to have a successful business. And so the dynamics of the family is the first thing that has to be addressed. Because if you keep seeing each other for how you used to be and only looking at the flawed, right? Because that's what we typically do, the flawed aspects of each member of the family, how can you grow something into something exponentially large and larger and have these excess amounts of wins and exchange of funds coming into your account and just pouring in to your business to build this wealth when everybody's in chaos? Everybody's is there's so much estrangement in the relationships. And so what I always recommend in step number one, right, is to have a conversation with each of the family members to understand where they feel, right, where they feel, not where they think. Because the thinking aspect is, okay, it makes sense. Makes sense that, yes, all my kids are going to be part of my family office. That makes sense. But how they feel about being part of the family office is completely different than what they think. And if they feel that there's not a place for them in this family business or in this family office, then they're really not going to want to participate in being part of this wealth building machine that could afford them and can continue to afford them a beautiful lifestyle. And so understanding each individual and what they're passionate about, what their purpose is very important to help find the way that they can be incorporated into this business without the kicking and screaming. And it's like that kid that's just like, no, no, I'm not coming, I'm not coming, I'm not coming. It's like, yes, you are, yes, you are. And it's like, because we've got to understand the human aspect of the individuals that are coming in so that everybody can step into collaborating and working together and not working separately. And so the next level of what I'm speaking into today and why this is so important is because when we're in separation, right, when we're in that energy of separation with ourselves and with the people around us, particularly the family members, when there is separation and there's conflict, there is lack. Because lack and scarcity comes from fear and separation, right? Abundance comes from love and compassion. And so what we're really doing here is helping that energy of lack and scarcity and fear and disappointment and conflict and resistance, right? All of these negative emotions and negative energy has to be transmuted and transformed into positive energy. And what is positive energy? And it doesn't mean that you guys are not going to disagree. That's not what I'm saying. Of course, you're going to disagree. I hope you disagree, right? Because that the disagreement is going to help you expand. However, in this scenario where you're now in this energy of complementing each other, collaborating with each other, your hearts are full of love and compassion for each other, understanding each other, giving each other an opportunity, right? Not looking at the flaws, but looking at the gifts and what this person brings in so that we can continue to expand those beautiful attributes that we all have. We all have beautiful attributes and things to contribute. We just want to pull it out. We just want to remind each other how important it is when they're in that energy and how great they look and they appear when they're in that energy. And so that's the second part of why this is so important, that the family dynamics aspect gets taken care of very early on as this family business is moving into a family office space, or this family business or family office is growing and expanding, is getting to know each of the members, being able to speak to each of the members, understanding what their thoughts are about being part of this business, not just throwing them into a role, whether they like it or not, take it or leave it, because then your company becomes chaotic, becomes separate, and the mission and the vision of the founder will never be achieved. So I'm going to be leaving you all with that information today, and I will be back with more. Thanks. See you soon.